Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. We're going to be reviewing Money in the Bank 2024. We'll talk about the matches that happened on the card. If you like anything like wrestling gaming highlights, like talking about wrestling or reading books, then hit the subscribe button. Also, if you can leave a like on this video, it would be very much appreciated. Alright, so again, we're going to be looking at Bleacher Report. WWE Money in the Bank 2024 results, winners, live grades, reaction, and highlights. Welcome to Bleacher Report's live coverage of WWE Money in the Bank 2024 at Scotiabank Arena in Toronto. Here's a look at the lineup for Saturday's show. Alright, so you had Andrade, Carmelo Hayes, Chad Gable, Jey Uso, LA Knight, and Drew McIntyre in the Money in the Bank ladder match for a men's championship match contract. Next up, you had Sami Zayn versus Braun Breaker with Sami Zayn defending the Intercontinental Championship against Braun Breaker. Then you had Damian Priest versus Seth Rollins for the World Heavyweight Championship. Then you had Chelsea Green, Lyra Valkyria, Naomi, Zoe Stark, Tiffany Stratton, and Io Sky in the Money in the Bank ladder match for a women's championship match contract. And then you had Solo Sikoa, Jacob Fatu, and Tama Tonga with Tonga Loa. If you botch these names, says bad. Versus Kevin Owens, Cody Rhodes, and Randy Orton in a 6-man tag team match. Let's take a look at what happened during Saturday's pay-per-view. So the men's Money in the Bank ladder match. The first contest on the card was the men's Money in the Bank match. Uso made his way through the crowd as the first competitor to be introduced, while McIntyre was the last man to enter the ring. Surprisingly, everybody waited for the bell to get going instead of fighting as soon as they had the chance. We also didn't see anybody roll right out of the ring, which almost always happens in these contests. The Scottish Warrior was the first to use a ladder as a weapon and took out a few opponents before trying to climb up for the briefcase. This was a standard Money in the Bank match. The stronger wrestlers provided a base for the high flyers to hit risky spots, and everybody took their fair share of damage from the ladders. We didn't get anything groundbreaking, but this had enough well-performed spots to keep fans entertained from bell to bell. Something that stuck out was how nobody felt more dominant than anybody else. Everybody had their moment to shine and their fingers on the briefcase at a point in time. Andrade and Hayes had some of the most impressive moments, but everybody looked good. When it looked like Uso was going to claim the briefcase and the win, McIntyre threw a ladder into him like a javelin to knock him down. The former WWE champion climbed up and claimed victory for himself to end a solid Money in the Bank match. McIntyre may have won, but Andrade and Hayes were the standouts here. They created several highlight reel moments together and separately. Result: McIntyre won the men's Money in the Bank ladder match. Grade B+. Notable moments and observations. The pre-show ended with Samantha Irving and Ryland James singing the American and Canadian national anthems back-to-back. It was a cool way to kick off the show days after Canada Day and July 4th. Michael Cole was pumped up for Uso's entrance. Everybody else's entrance felt boring after the crowd went nuts for Jey. He probably should have come out last. The way Andrade's leg hit a ladder when he hit a springboard leg drop looked painful. He avoided falling onto the ladder, but his leg slammed into it after the initial impact. Andrade's reverse Spanish fly on Hayes was amazing. Both men executed it perfectly. The sunset flip from Andrade to Hayes onto a ladder was awesome. He will agree that the sunset flip from Andrade to Hayes onto a ladder was awesome. I think it was a sunset flip powerbomb. So it was a good spot, but overall he thought the match was all right. Next up, you had Sami Zayn versus Braun Breaker for the Intercontinental Championship, with Sami Zayn defending the Intercontinental Championship against Braun Breaker. The Intercontinental title was on the line in the second match when Zayn faced Breaker, a man who has been a constant thorn in his side for weeks. As expected, the Canadian fans gave Zayn a warm welcome, and he looked genuinely touched as he soaked it in. Breaker showed off his power by easily hurling Zayn after their first lockup. He also showed off some speed with a quick go behind and a second throw. He made it seem like he was toying with Zayn, so the champion slapped him to show he wasn't intimidated. Having to follow a six-person ladder match would be difficult for anybody, but they did a good job making sure they weren't lost in the shuffle. Zayn is among the best underdog performers in the business, so he made Breaker look even more dangerous than usual by selling every move as if he was close to giving up. The longer this went on, the more it proved that Breaker is a versatile performer who is going to have a long career if he stays healthy. Unfortunately for him, this was not his night. The underdog from the underground hit a haluva kick and pinned his challenger to retain the Intercontinental title in a performance that made both men look like stars. Result: Zayn defeated Breaker, grade B+. Notable moments and observations. Breaker needs better entrance music. At least his singlets usually have cool designs. Zayn's first moonsault to the floor almost ended in disaster, but he managed to save himself. The second moonsault Zayn tried from the barricade later in the match was saved by Breaker, but it almost ended with Zayn landing on his head. Breaker's Frankensteiner is a wild display of agility and athleticism, especially when he pops up to the top rope like it's nothing. Yeah. This was a weak match in his opinion. Just another weak Intercontinental title defense from Sami. Just a weak match in his opinion. So, yeah. Alright, next up, we had Damian Priest versus Seth Rollins for the World Heavyweight Championship, with Damian Priest defending the World Heavyweight Championship against Seth Rollins. Rollins had the entire arena singing along to his entrance music as he made his way out for the world title match against Priest. As soon as the bell rang, they were trading strikes and trying to go for a quick win. The Archer of Infamy avoided a pedigree and scored the first 2 count with a suplex. Both men kept their eyes on the stage, expecting McIntyre to show up and cash in his newly won briefcase. Even though both competitors performed well, there was something off about this match. It may have been a lack of build-up in the feud, or it may have been the predictability of how it all played out. Whatever it was, it kept this clash from reaching its full potential. After Rollins hit a Falcon Arrow, the referee declared a 2 count for what was clearly a 3 count. It says a pin, but I'm assuming he's assuming they meant it was a 3 count. The crowd began booing loudly until McIntyre showed up and handed his briefcase to the official to cash in and join the match. The bell rang and they all started fighting. Now that it was a triple threat, nobody was disqualified when CM Punk showed up and attacked McIntyre with a steel chair. He obliterated the Scottish Warrior and then grabbed the world title to knock him out. Punk sat on the announce table and watched as Priest hit South of Heaven for the win. The shenanigans toward the end added some drama to the situation and helped make this bout a lot more exciting. Priest retained, Rollins is protected by not taking the pin, and the feud between Punk and McIntyre may now include the Visionary after he expressed anger toward the best in the world for getting involved. Result: Priest defeated Rollins and McIntyre, grade B. Notable moments and observations. Rollins was getting over 100 decibels from the crowd during his entrance, according to a graphic on the screen. Before the match, Finn Balor had a suspicious look on his face after Priest left the Judgment Day's clubhouse. Rollins' Hurricanronic counter to a chokeslam looked very good. Rollins tried to catch and slam Priest when he jumped off the middle rope, but it didn't go as planned. He thought this match was alright. Let's see. So he does agree with what Bleacher Report said about CM Punk coming out when he showed up and attacked McIntyre with the steel chair. He went after McIntyre, and as they said, the shenanigans toward the end added some drama to the situation and helped make this bout a lot more exciting. So that was good stuff. The Punk stuff was good. So yeah. So yes, the Punk stuff definitely helped the match, in his opinion. But the overall match itself was, it was alright. So yeah. We're going to move on to the women's Money in the Bank ladder match. Naomi was out first for the women's Money in the Bank ladder match. As soon as it started, everybody cleared out of the ring to grab a ladder, except for Green. She stole Sky's ladder and was too afraid to climb it, so she tried to use it to knock the briefcase down instead. This contest quickly turned into short sequences with 2 or 3 competitors at a time, while everybody else was down at ringside until it was their turn. This setup allowed us to see several different combinations of opponents work together, but it led to a weird pace for several minutes. We saw a lot of good individual spots with little cohesion or reason for most of what we saw. The crowd took a while, but eventually got into it and chanted, "This is awesome," after a few entertaining moments in a row. After the halfway mark, it felt like everything started clicking together more, and this turned into an enjoyable melee that outshined the men's match. After Green came so close to winning, Stratton pulled down the briefcase to claim the win and a future title shot. Result: Stratton won the women's Money in the Bank ladder match, grade A-. Notable moments and observations. Naomi's entrance could be the biggest thing in WWE if it made some minor tweaks and gave her back her old song or something new. Stark wore some face paint that gave off Arnold Schwarzenegger, and Commando vibes. Sky and Valkyria had a nasty spot with a ladder in the corner, but seemed to be fine and continued with a nice sequence. Stark hit the back of her head on a ladder during a senton, but kept going without any issue. Valkyria's German suplex from the ladder was awesome because Sky sold it well. Naomi's DDT to Stratton was among the best moments of the match. This was an alright women's match. There were some nasty but cool spots in this match. Lyra actually took a power bomb from Zoe onto the ladder, if he's remembering correctly. Io Sky actually did what seemingly looked like a Michinoku driver to Zoe Stark off the ladder through another ladder. That was a nasty, crazy, and cool looking spot at the same time. But the overall match itself was alright in his opinion. And then we move on to the main event. You had Solo Sikoa, Tama Tonga, and Jacob Fatu versus Cody Rhodes, Randy Orton, and Kevin Owens. Solo Sikoa, Tama Tonga, and Jacob Fatu, with Tonga Loa by their side, took on Rhodes, Orton, and Owens. KO was given the same warm welcome as the other Canadian stars on the show. Rhodes and Sikoa looked like they would begin for their teams, but Tonga tagged in instead. Got it. You could tell this was going to get more intense as time went on, so it made sense for them to start with a slow and methodical pace. As soon as Fatu tagged in for the first time, you could feel a change in the atmosphere, especially after he no-sold a DDT from Orton. For such a bitter feud, it was surprising how long it took for this to devolve into a huge fight. Sikoa accidentally knocked out the ref which ended up saving him from being pinned after taking every finisher from the babyface team. The ref was crushed against the steel steps, and Fatu was put through the announce table. We saw just about everybody hit at least a finisher as they built toward the finish. The official was hurled back into the ring just in time for Sikoa to pin Rhodes with a Samoan spike. There was a lot to like in this match, but it also felt like a repeat of all the same tropes that this faction has been doing for the past few years. At least Sikoa pinning Rhodes will likely lead to a title match for the new tribal chief at SummerSlam on August 3rd. Result: Solo Sikoa, Tama Tonga, and Jacob Fatu defeated Rhodes, Orton, and Owens. Grade B. Notable moments and observations. Michael Cole said WWE had to pull strings to get Fatu into Canada. Rhodes' ring jacket was a little more ridiculous than usual. The big gold eagles on the shoulders were a bit much. Fatu no-selling Orton's signature DDT was a fun moment. The way Loa hit the announce table after Rhodes' suicide dive looked and sounded terrible. Hopefully, he's alright. The final word. This year's Money in the Bank pay-per-view was mostly predictable, but had a few surprises that helped make it stand out. Cena's retirement announcement will be a talking point for weeks. Zayn retaining the Intercontinental title against a dominant breaker in Canada was a feel-good moment, and both Money in the Bank winners felt like appropriate decisions. But having McIntyre cash in and Phil on the same night, thanks to Punk, will be a controversial decision among fans, even if it accomplished its goal of generating heat for their feud. The botch with Priest failing to kick out of a pin was quickly glossed over. The women's Money in the Bank bout had some of the biggest highlights of the whole show and made all six competitors look like they deserved to be there. Even if the main event felt like the kind of match we might see on a random Raw or SmackDown, all six men worked well together to make it a mostly enjoyable performance. As a whole, this was a good pay-per-view that could have been better with a few small changes. Grade B+. He thought the match was alright. This was a weak match. He's not interested in Solo Sikoa. He's also not interested in seeing him getting the title shot at SummerSlam. He's not a Solo Sikoa guy, so it's seeming like both World Championship matches are not going to deliver. If the CM Punk and Drew McIntyre match happens, he thinks he's said this before, but he hopes it's a good match. The build-up has been good. So, yeah, another week wrestling pay-per-view for this year, and another week pay-per-view from the WWE. So, yeah. We're going to go back and grade the matches as well. So, yeah. Alright, so we're going to attempt to go back and grade the show. So, the first match was the men's Money in the Bank ladder match. Bleacher Report, the grade they gave the match was a B+. He's going to give it a C+. Moving on to the next match, it was Sami Zayn versus Braun Breaker for the Intercontinental Championship, with Sami Zayn defending the Intercontinental Championship against Braun Breaker. Bleacher Report, the grade they gave the match was a B+. He's going to give it a C-. Moving on to the next match, it was Damian Priest versus Seth Rollins for the World Heavyweight Championship, with Damian Priest defending the World Heavyweight Championship against Seth Rollins. Bleacher Report, the grade they gave for the match was a B. He's going to give it a C+ because of the CM Punk stuff. So, yeah. And moving on to the women's Money in the Bank ladder match. Bleacher Report, the grade they gave the match was an A-. He's going to give it a C+. And then moving on to the main event. Solo Sikoa, Tama Tonga, and Jacob Fatu versus Cody Rhodes, Randy Orton, and Kevin Owens in a 6-man tag team match. They gave the grade for the match that Bleacher Report gave was a B. He's going to give it a C-. So, yeah, again. So the letter grade he thinks he's going to give the show is a C. So, yeah. If you like anything like wrestling gaming highlights, like talking about wrestling or reading books, then hit the subscribe button. Also, if you can leave a like on this video, it would be very much appreciated. And if you want to know more about when things are coming out on the channel, you can go to Twitter, where the username is @Batman2063. So, yeah. And on Instagram, where the username is the same as the YouTube channel name. But if you want to follow, you can. If you don't, that's fine too. Bye.